This is WOMM-LP operating out of Burlington, Vermont, 105.9 The Radiator. Good evening, it is The Rocket Shop. I'm your host tonight, Tom Proctor, and with me is Big Heavy World only Cobalt Blue. Hello.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming in and showcasing some of your music this evening.
It's been a work in progress for sure.
Well, as you know, we always like starting off with the song. So
Yes.
what you got for us?
This is a song called Opal, which is Icelandic for love song, or favorite song, or something along those lines. I don't know, I'm not fluent. Um, so yeah, here it is. It's partially in Icelandic and the chorus is in English. Ég vil vera Opal, ég vil syngja fyrir stuga en dag och efter ackorden synger mina kis förvandlar. Efter allt huvudet upp att hamnet ta nästa ta det tredje lagen. We sing in conversation, our love plays on radio waves. We see our lines on the big screen, second stage of the age. Get through vetted Boston Docker till it had a knocker on and done. Yeah, men reina at hade mig fram, I can be the melody to move us along. We dance in fluid motion, our love stays in center stage. We cry from the sky, don't our eyes. I can land so you can fly. After all, my favorite part of every single harmony that enters my heart.
Cobalt Blue there with, I'm not even going to try and pronounce it.
It's okay. Opal.
Okay. I'll leave you to the pronunciations. So I'm guessing you've got a little bit of influence from Sigur Rós.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Actually, Happy Pola was a big inspiration for this song specifically. I listen to a lot of Icelandic music just because I really like it there. I'm not even of like Icelandic descent or anything like that. It's just kind of I went there 1 year with my family, and then I've just been thinking about it ever since.
Yeah? What is it about Iceland and the kind of their aesthetic, their culture? What about the music?
It's really just beautiful. Actually, what really surprised me when I went to Reykjavík, which is the capital of Iceland, they have a punk museum in the city that used to be like a public bathroom, and they turned it into this whole museum of Icelandic punk music history. And I was in there for like 2 hours. It was incredible, and it was just such a small place, and like I guess that really inspired me to look more into it. Plus the place is just so beautiful. And I have a dream of mine. Eventually, I'd like to move to Iceland as to represent them in Eurovision. That's my like, yeah. It's my dream.
It's a great dream. Yeah, I can't think of a time when Iceland won a Eurovision Song Contest.
I don't think they ever did.
They haven't ever done that. Then again, you know, Eurovision's for those that don't know, definitely check it out on YouTube or something. It's a pretty funny contest. So yeah, I mean, Iceland's got the steep history of producing really out there, really interesting kind of music. So
yeah, definitely.
How does that influence your music? What's your process? how do you go about making a track?
Oh, man, it's different every single time. With this one, it started in English, and then I just hated the lyrics so much because they sounded weird. And I'm like, I just don't like this. You know, what can I do to make it special? I'm just sing it in Icelandic. You know, so that's what I did, and I like it significantly better now. With other songs, it's like it usually starts with a guitar riff, and then I make something out of that. Sometimes it's like one line of lyrics. I keep like a notebook just of things I hear like in the streets or like randomly in passing. I'll think like, oh, that's a good song lyric. You know, I should write that down. So I carry a notebook around with me, and yeah, eventually I kind of just like collect a whole bunch of them, and then I throw it together, and it's like some nonsense of a song.
Yeah. And have you learned Icelandic specifically to play music, or is this kind of like a hobby
Yes.
of yours? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'm not fluent yet, but I did initially start learning it for the purpose of being able to sing in Icelandic.
Wow. And how long ago did that happen?
I actually started this year, in the beginning of this year.
Well, that's definitely going to be part of my next question. Is kind of I've asked every person that's come through here, but what's your COVID experience been like in terms of your music, and how's that helped your
Yeah.
music or hindered your music? In fact,
I would go so far as to say that Cobalt Blue wouldn't exist without COVID because I actually came up with the band name right like the week. Well, I say band name, it's just me and a bunch of mannequins. But I came up with it like the first week we were locked down, and I was doing a self-portrait in oil paints, just like to pass the time, and it was only in blues, or mostly in blues. And I kept running out of Cobalt Blue, and I'm like, I'm just sitting there like, you know, hours at an easel, like, oh, that would be a good band name, you know, if I had a band. And then I said, well, I guess I don't really need a band. I can just do it myself. So I spent a lot of that time, I guess, figuring out how to write music, or more so the technological side of things. And now that I'm here in Burlington, like in college, it's so different. Like it's opened up a whole new world of what I can do with technology for music. So it's just been growing since then.
yeah.
So I dare say that it was a positive thing. COVID was a positive experience for my musicianship, although it was obviously a terrible thing to have happened. It affected a lot of people who, tour and stuff. I'm just not at that level yet.
Right. I mean, for a lot of musicians, it's been a great time to be able to create, because you can kind of cloister yourself inside. And
Yeah.
we've talked to a few people who've kind of set up their own home studios, or got way better at producing their own music, or
Yeah.
just kind of blossom creatively. I see yourself, you've got your SoundCloud. We've got a few tracks on there, but there is an album
Not
on
yet.
the way.
There is an
So-
album on the way.
So do you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, the songs that I'm playing tonight are all from that album that is coming up. The songs that are already released are, like, I don't really consider them, like, real songs, I guess. It's all digital. They're mostly, like, practice, if anything else. And I just thought, this sounds okay. Let's just put it out there, just to get my name on something. And I have I have an album laid out. I'm not sure when exactly it's going to be, when it's going to come to fruition, but I'm hoping sometime this summer, like maybe in the August, maybe September region. But I'm going for it.
Right. So, I mean, how far are you at the moment? How many tracks you got? And
I've got, let's see, I think 13 tracks right now.
Okay.
Everything is written. It's just like the recording process I need to do, which I plan to do myself because that's what I'm going to school for. But I don't know anything about the actual music business. So that's where I'm kind of trying to find someone to help me out with that.
So what do you mean by that? Do you mean like promoting and marketing, or?
Yeah, that, and like just getting my stuff out there, like getting it on Spotify, like real platforms people use, other than just like self-uploaded stuff.
Yeah.
And I know nowadays it's so much easier to do that than it used to be. So I feel lucky in that regard. But I don't know. I want to go about it as professionally as I can.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. And you said you're studying this at Champlain, UVM?
Yes.
Champlain?
Yep. I am a creative media major with a specialization in sonic arts, which is, just fancy words for audio engineering.
Well, that's awesome, though. So you got access to all the state-of-the-art equipment, I'm assuming?
Yeah, they have a really nice studio, and I basically live there.
Yeah.
You know, I want to learn the board. You know, they have all sorts of buttons and stuff, and it's just so exciting for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and they have such great professors there that are willing to go the extra mile for students who are engaged in this. So like, not to be like marketing for the school or anything, but like I've just had, you know, a great time.
Yeah, and does that mean you've got a lot of space to kind of practice and maybe mess up and re-record without having to worry about so many people talk about how expensive studio time is, right?
Yes.
So do you have that kind of luxury of being able to take a little bit more time over this?
Absolutely. I'm also lucky because of COVID, there's not many people in the studio, like, ever. So I can just be in there for hours at a time. You know, I don't have to pay for the space. I don't have to pay for any of my own equipment. I can just take over the whole place and spend like 5 hours there and just like really flesh out what I'm doing. And I have recorded stuff in there, but it's not songs that will be on the album, mostly just tracks to get me used to the equipment, if that makes sense.
No, for sure. But have you, I can imagine, as you said, it's kind of pretty quiet at the moment, and that's understandable because of COVID. Have you brought in any other fellow students or friends into your music making? Is this purely solo and you kind of want to do this one yourself?
Okay, that's kind of a loaded question. I spent a lot of my time in high school trying to get a band together. Like, that's all I wanted. And I succeeded multiple times, but it always just ended terribly because of, like, one reason or another. It was usually because of, like, creative differences, or, like, I was usually the one who took it too seriously, and everybody else was like, you know, like, oh, yeah, we'll get together sometime. I was like, when are we touring? So that just always ended up not working out. So I kind of realized that maybe it would be best if I just did everything myself. You know, I wrote it all, I played it all. That's why I learned so many instruments. You know, I play the drums for my own songs. I play guitar, bass, you know, anything that it needs. I'm going to learn the instrument so I can get it on there. And I haven't officially collaborated with anybody, but I am open to it. Like, my friend Abby here, we have written a song together in the time I've been in school, but that's really about it. You know, it's kind of my own journey here. That's actually part of the reason I have mannequins standing around me. The gimmick is kind of, it's a stand-in band, because my goal, obviously I can't do this right now, but my goal is to sound like a full band. I couldn't rig things up electronically tonight to make that happen, unfortunately. But the idea is, in a real show, or a bigger live setting, it would just be me and maybe a 4 or 5 piece band made up of mannequins, and they would hold instruments, allowing me to freely switch off between any of the instruments, so I could play any of the parts I wanted to. And with a friend back home, I'm rigging up a system to kind of make it so that I have a physical button to mute and unmute tracks, so it's kind of a combination of, like, pre-recorded tracks and live music, improvised live music, based on, you know, whatever I choose to pick up in the moment.
Interesting. And so would that include, like, looper pedals and...
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's not totally fleshed out yet, but that's going to be the idea. I had to come up with something, because I can't be a one-man band all at the same time, but I can do it in parts, so... So
is it like Cobalt Blue and the Mannequin Band?
Yes, when it's live, it's Cobalt Blue and the Mannequin Band. It's just me tonight, it's Cobalt Blue, but I brought Lola along anyway.
They're not playing this evening. But
no, they're just here, you know, to...
Moral support.
Moral support. Yeah, if you can read the sign here, it says they're out of service. So, you know, I had to get them fixed.
Well, we would love to hear another song from just you.
Okay.
So what have you got for us?
I think I'll play a song called As Plants Do. I wish I could rise in a world where she would never cry. There's always syrup in her eyes. The ocean makes her grueling tides. Death is made by many strides. Nature doesn't sympathize. For now, I live until my mother dies. Baby sun shines bright, and I just can't get enough of it. There's always some ice freezing over wish that summer were mine all the time. I'd always be outside, doing just as the plants do. No longer would I need food. I'd always be outside, doing just as the plants do. No longer would I need food. For now, I live until my best friend dies. But baby, sun shines so dark, and I just can't get out of it. There's always the lights freezing over my eyes. I wish that summer were mine all the time. Life among the dead, clouds would speak in signs, and we'd only photosynthesize. But now I wait for better times, fractions would be simplified. For now I live. For now I live. For now I live. For now I live. All the time.
Cobalt Blue there with As Plants Do. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that song? So, yeah, what title and the...
I actually wrote this song not very long ago. I think it was the first day here in Burlington that it reached like 50 degrees. And I was so happy that I had to write a song about it. I'm not really sure what it's about. I hate saying that, but I like to compare myself to REM songs because you listen to it and you have no idea what they're talking about, but like it's catchy, so whatever. So I think of this song as kind of a mishmash of different meanings you can derive from it, but primarily I think it's about coming out of winter, coming out of a kind of depressive state and feeling the sun for the first time again.
Yeah, I mean, it's a momentous day when that happens.
Yeah, especially after a long winter here in New England.
And every single year I get tricked into thinking it's going to be a nice spring again, and then...
It snows in April.
And then 2 weeks later we get this kind of weather.
Yeah. I'm thankful, though. I feel like it's on the way, and I love summer so much, so I had to celebrate it.
Yeah, of course. And I think during those first days of spring where those... the green gets on the trees, and you finally, as you said, feel the warmth on your skin. I can imagine wanting to sit down and like pen something to kind of be joyous in that moment. That's wonderful. And so you were saying in high school you tried to get a band together a lot.
Multiple bands
together. So it sounds like you've been musical for quite a while. So take me through that journey. Have you been doing this since you were like 2, 3, or did you?
No, actually, the first time I picked up an instrument was, I don't know, like 3rd or 4th grade for the school band, and I played the flute, and I absolutely hated it. Like, worst time in my life ever. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but like I didn't enjoy it at all. And after I put the flute away, which is like around 8th grade, sometime in middle school, I was like, I'm never touching an instrument again. Like, that was so boring. And then I guess I started to listen to more music, expand my horizons a little bit. And I was like, I really like this. Like, I'm connecting with this. This means something to me. And I started envisioning myself, like, what if I could play that? What if I was on stage? And luckily, my father, he is a guitarist, and so is my grandfather. So I had an easy way of getting into that. So I asked my dad for like a really short lesson. I asked my grandfather for a really short lesson. I quickly learned stuff on acoustic guitar, and I picked up electric. And I'm primarily an electric guitar player, but like limited resources in college, so I'm making it work tonight with an acoustic guitar. And then it just like exploded from there. In high school, I learned the violin. I have a cello now. I played viola in a string orchestra. I have I have an accordion and a trumpet at home. I want to learn everything. I want to be Prince, basically.
Did you ever pick up the flute again?
No, I think I took it out of my closet once, like 2 years ago, and I played a C chord or a C note, and I'm like, yep, that's enough. Let's put that back. I have discovered that I prefer stringed instruments.
I see.
Yeah.
That's very interesting, considering you have amassed so much of a collection of instruments and the ability to play it, that flute has still got a bit of a black mark next to its name.
Yeah, that just wasn't a great experience overall. Maybe concert settings in that regard aren't really my thing.
Yeah, I mean, more power to you with the other instruments. And so when you were in high school trying to create these bands, was it all in the similar vein of what you're trying to do now, or did you have visions of being punk or goth or metal or?
I think the band I made it, I guess, furthest with was primarily a metal band. That was always kind of what I leaned towards. It was either punk or metal. And then I had like a duo, which lasted for a little bit. That was like some weird combination of like folk and punk and like metal. It was bizarre. Everything I did was like kind of out there, but I loved it, and I don't really know what I would call myself as a genre, because even here playing this now, it's a different genre from what I recorded, back in the studio. So
Right.
I don't know. It gets so convoluted.
Right. Do you have when you're kind of creating tracks, do you have a vision of where you see it going, and you stick diligently to that vision, or are you kind of more of a, well, this is kind of an idea, I'm gonna see what it sounds like and move from there?
I think the only song I ever had like a clear vision for was the last one I'm going to play tonight. It's called Dream Girl, but everything else has just started with some tiny snippet of something, whether it's lyrics or a guitar riff or something else. And I usually go into it with no vision at all. And then something happens and I'm like, oh, I guess that's cool. And then a week later I change my mind and now it's a completely different kind of song. Like the one I just did, As Plants Do, that was meant to be a little bit more upbeat than it actually is. It's kind of a fast-paced song, but the lyrics aren't very, enjoyable. It's just, I don't know. It's really hard describing my songwriting process because, like, I feel like I don't have one.
Yeah.
It's just the conglomeration in my brain just kind of, like, finds its way onto a paper.
So you don't have a particular like place you're like writing or setting where you feel most creative?
Not in my dorm room.
Not just anywhere that's not your dorm room.
Anywhere else. A lot of my songs I've written outside.
Yeah.
I will say that though. I mean, I try to write in the studio just because, like, going back to the professionalism thing, that's a very professional thing to do. You show up and you do your work at the fancy studio, but that doesn't really end up happening either. I think because I go into it saying, like, okay, I need to write a song today. And then I get stressed out about it.
It's difficult to be creative in a quote unquote professional setting,
Yeah, it is. And I know that I'm not built for a professional setting at all. Despite what I keep saying about how I want this whole musical project to be presented, I'm not a professional person.
I would say 99.9% of musicians are not professional.
It took me a long time to realize that. The day I learned that Paul McCartney doesn't know how to read sheet music, I had to sit down. I was like, I had a crisis.
Yeah, I think what we often see is like that final product, when it's all polished and it's taken many, many hours and, a lot of stress and strain and creative outbursts to get there. And we think, oh, well, this person must have their...
They know what they're doing.
They have their stuff together, you know what I mean? Whereas in reality is we've just seen the end product rather than everything that kind of created it, which is just, probably fireworks and
Yeah.
explosions and a whole mess of things.
Yeah,
So,
and in high school, I was really obsessed with learning music theory.
mm-hmm.
Like, I thought that was what was going to get me to make it, And then I quickly found out that music theory is a lot like math, which I'm very, very bad at. But I tried my best. I stuck with it for 4 years. I took music theory, and it was miserable, but I do think I'm a better musician because of it, but it's not necessary. It's really not. You have to have a drive to do it and some kind of vision and the will to learn your craft, You don't need to have that kind of classical contemporary training.
And we've had people in here who have definitely had that kind of musical theory knowledge. And I mean, some people love that kind of music. But
Not me.
personally, I find it horribly dull.
Yeah.
Um,
It's awful. I do find value in it, but oh my god, it's just too much.
my mind goes back to a guy that did like acoustic jazz. I can't remember. You remember the name, Bob, of that guy? No.
Jazz gets real weird. With
this
the
guy
theory.
was jazz, but just with on like a cello. Anyway, it was very strange music. So we got about time for one more song. But before you play it, I want you to. You said this is the one song that you had a real creative vision for. So
Yes.
talk me through the creation of this song.
Okay, the song is called Dream Girl. It's it's about the manic pixie dream girl trope, which is something you see in movies a lot. And I was growing up, I would see this all the time. It's usually like a female character who's meant to be like the quirky, fun-loving one who is meant to aid the male character in their, I don't know, quest to learn or find happiness, or I don't know, something like that. Growing up, I was always like, yeah, those are my favorite kind of characters. Like, I want to be like her. And then I kind of started to realize, like, this isn't really a great image. It's a cliche, and it's kind of not really a great message to be spreading to young girls, And it kind of made me angry, just because I know I want it to be that. So I wrote this song in rage, and it's kind of about the people who expect a manic pixie dream girl in real life.
All right.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, we'll take it away.
All right, let me just screw with some buttons here.
All right.
Having my roadie take over.
Not every band gets a roadie.
14. Cool. Okay, without further delay, this is Dream Girl. Spent all day in your room, waiting for someone to relate to. Maybe she's out of the box. Maybe she's a total fox. She's not your type, but still she's just right. Manic pixie dream girl, smiles from your television. Manic pixie dream girl, nothing but imagination. protect you from your own obscenity. Boy, I know you only slipped a knife from the wrong side of the screen. Boy, I know there's gotta be a girl here to tell you what it all means. Manic pixie dream girl, wild card queen girl, young and wild and free girl. It's only chance you.
All right, Cobalt Blue playing is out there with Dream Girl. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. That was a little rough on an acoustic guitar. Forgive me for that. But.
Oh, that was great, and we're looking forward to the album coming out later on this year. Anyway, where I'm sure
Thank you
you'll
very
be
much.
on the album, and you've got to come back in again once that's
Definitely
released.
Yeah, you guys haven't seen the last of me yet.
So just before I let you go, if people do want to listen to you, where do they find you?
Usually I post a lot of my stuff on my Instagram, which is at cobaltblue.music, and right now I'm most active on YouTube, which is just under Cobalt Blue. I also have SoundCloud and Bandcamp under the same name, and hopefully when that album comes out, I'll be on all the major platforms under Cobalt Blue. Unless it's live, then I'm Cobalt Blue and the Mannequin Band.
Awesome. Well, thank you once again for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Catch us next week. We're going to have Dogface in the studio. This is 105.9 The Radiator. It's been The Rocket Shop. I've been your host, Tom Proctor, and good night.